Hello, everyone, and welcome to this super interesting panel because I don't know about you, but I'm a lot into DeFi and I would love to know what the trends of tomorrow are. So I would like to start this panel with a round of introductions. My name is Maria Eneva-Olms, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ekolance, where we educate professionals and onboard them on Web3 projects through activation events such as online hackathons, developer challenges, and user challenges. I would like to start here on my right with Mounir. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Mounir. I'm founder of Paraswap. Myself, I have a technical background in software engineering. Paraswap is a decentralized middleware that allows customers like Aave, MetaMask, Ledger to offer to their users trading capacities on-chain actually. And it's been already 4 years that Paraswap has been launched, and we processed over $53 billion in trading volume.
Thank you. Do you want to continue?
Hey, hello Maria. Hello everyone. My name is Elwan. I'm a developer relation engineer at Corium. Do you want me to give a little background?
Yeah, a little background about Korea.
Yeah, so I'm from the Caribbean. I study in Montreal. I have a computer science degree, engineering. And yeah, I've been with Corium since this year. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Hello everyone, I'm Bruno Garcia San Martin. I'm actually the CMO of Prime Numbers. We are building the public blockchain of XDC, and I've been in the space for already 5 years. I've as an investor, and also I have a Web3 marketing company, and now we are focused on building on the XDC network, which is a layer one. It's, let's say, a fork of Ethereum. We are ISO compliant. We are in the trade finance sector, and I'm very happy to talk to you guys and give some insights about DeFi today.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Fabio Velarde. My role is growth and partnership, so I lead any user acquisition and network expansion efforts in Corium and Sologenic as well. Just to give you more context, Sologenic is our mother company. It was built on the XRPL. We were one of the first ones to actually build a DEX there, so I think this topic is really interesting. We're all about DeFi, and especially we're going to talk about programmability and customization, and also bridging to traditional finance, which is quite exciting.
All right. So I want to start with a little bit of my own experience. When I started with DeFi, it was super difficult for me. You know, all these difficult names, difficult technologies, installing the wallet, all these decentralized exchanges. It was really hard for me to grasp. And the technology is getting even more complex with time, right? So for me, usability is one problem that we can maybe speak about later. But my first question would be, what emerging technologies or innovations do you see as the most promising for shaping the future of DeFi, Flavio?
I think this is a pivotal time to talk about innovation, especially during the bear market. We've seen that the projects that prevail are the projects that don't rely on trading under speculation, and they are offering products that are sustainable and have business models that are adaptable to the new, I would say, standards that are coming up. So I want to touch on 2 points. One of them is a trend that I'm seeing is tokenization. Fireblocks just spoke about it. We really believe in tokenizations as a way of unlocking new liquidity in new markets, and also bringing traditional finance assets into the blockchain is definitely, we've seen reports. This is $1 trillion market opportunity. And I think this leads me to a second point. So when you're bridging these types of assets, you need to have a level of compliance, of course. So in Corium, we believe to give some control to institutions to be able to adopt DeFi into their already existing applications. And in this form of communication, we've seen more advanced, for example, ISO 222 standardization, which is basically making sure that this messaging is compliant from the protocol level. So we're going to talk a little bit about smart tokens, and I think maybe Helwan can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, sure, Fabio. So when you think about it, when you think about tokenization, one of the big things, of course, is tokens. At Corium, as Fabio said, really think we will put the asset first, And smart tokens, so Maria, you spoke about innovation, and I think smart tokens is really one of them. So what we did at Corium with smart token is that we took the token logic execution and we took it from the smart contract and put it into the protocol layers. And that had, it's a really like a powerful paradigm shift, because thanks to this right now you have like faster transaction, cheaper transaction as well, and the transaction itself is more deterministic. And this is, I think, one of the biggest innovation that will bring more institution into the game. And yes.
I would like to add something. If we talk about innovation, and you guys mentioned innovation in DeFi, you talk about tokenization. Me as a builder and also as an investor, when I think about tokenization, I believe that tokenization of real-world assets is going to be the next narrative. For example, right now at XDC and Prime Numbers, we are developing a lending and borrowing platform that is going to be connected to real-world assets. We are getting regulated to be able to do that. And just think how big the gap can be and how can we connect it. Because imagine that you have whatever, your car, you have a building, you can tokenize it. And the thing is that if we connect Web2 with Web3, the thing is that in Web2 is way harder to get funds. It's way harder to sell things. But if we go to Web3 and we tokenize whatever we want in these platforms, we can get capital from all over the world without even having to do a KYC. So I think tokenization of real-world assets, it's going to be the next narrative probably in the next bull market. And we are seeing little by little more projects are really getting into the real-world assets world. So yeah, I think that's going to be probably the next narrative, and it's going to be a very important innovation.
Thank you. What is your opinion, Mounir?
Yeah, following on tokenization, we already seen. Sorry, my lost my voice these few days. Tokenization, we already see evidence of real traction. Well, first one that comes to mind is stablecoins, and for the last say 12 months, the volumes in exchanges has dropped for over 60%, but the market share of stablecoins has grown actually. And we can see also a lot of usage for stablecoins. Like in Paraswap, we pay only in stablecoins, where our engineers receive salaries in dollars, euros, pesos, and whatever you name it.
So it's a crypto to fiat.
Yes, but we held our treasury in stablecoins only. But also one thing interesting is MakerDAO. They put parts of their treasury in T-bills, and that was one of the largest use cases of real-world assets through a DAO that is completely not, I would say, held by a private entity. So the DAO puts their treasury in T-bills, and they're earning 5% a year for money that was sleeping before that happened.
Very interesting. Thank you. All right, now a question for Bruno. How can DeFi projects address the challenge of scalability, security, and regulatory compliance in the coming years? So regulatory compliance, very interesting.
Okay, I think we can divide this question in the three different topics that you just mentioned. I think DeFi right now, it's improving a lot, but there is a lot of lack of security because everyone can build in Web3. It's an open source platform, it's an open source network, and it's like a jungle. So if we go into security, I think that every single DeFi platform should have audits, which is very important because we've seen it throughout the bull market that a lot of projects didn't even have audits and they had a lot of millions in total value locked. So this is something that we need to work, and I think the connection would be regulations. I think if every DeFi project is regulated, I think this could be the opposite, but DeFi and regulations, I think they can work together. If every DeFi platform, if every lending and borrowing platform have licenses, here in Europe or in the US or in Dubai, whatever you want to get those licenses, I think it's the way to be more secure, and also it's the way to pass those regulations. And talking about the scalability, I think DeFi right now, it's not as friendly as we want it to be in the future. So I think building applications that, for example, have a fiat or ramp solutions. Imagine a lending and borrowing platform or a DEX that you have a fiat on ramp solution where you just put your email and you don't even need MetaMask. That's really going to get scalability and more users into the DeFi ecosystem. It's going to take some years. We need to work on the platforms. We need to work on doing it user-friendly. But I think those are the things that I believe that will help get more users into the DeFi ecosystem.
Can I disagree on a point?
Yeah, sure.
I believe that DeFi protocol should be like neutral public goods that don't need to be compliant with any protocol, but maybe users of those DeFi protocols, maybe we can have some nuance. But I'm like a kind of a for a separation between the native protocol, like say HTTP email, like nobody regulates HTTP and email, but state nations can regulate how do we use those protocols. That's my opinion.
Okay, but if we want adoption and we don't want every project or every platform to be regulated, like we cannot get people to regulate themselves. We want real adoption, we need those platforms to be secure, right?
Yes, I agree. Maybe we can have standards. For instance, recently a French regulator published a paper on proposals for how DeFi protocols can be safer. We can agree or disagree on a lot of details or nuances that they provided, but for instance, something like kind of a certificate that can provide at least the tuning for end users, who I think should be maybe institutions that can make the best judgment for whether this protocol is safe or not. Knowing that we can never be 100% sure for open source code that is not guaranteed by anyone.
Yeah.
And this happened also in Web 2.0, I would say, like Java. 2 years ago had a bug in its log, and a lot of companies got hacked because of that. And yeah, you cannot regulate Java neither, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
If I may, I think that, so there is two things here. There is like regulation and framework, as you say, Mounir, but I think, so if you, for example, you give a certificate to companies, at the end of the day, there is still like a bigger company or an institution that is going to issue the certificate. So it's still what Bruno said, right? It's a regulation. But if you put like some frameworks in the addition, for example, let's say ISO 222, that is a super powerful tool that all of the company, all of the blockchain company, and even like the traditional DeFi company can use to make sure that all the transactions are standardized, right?
Yeah.
So you introduce less vulnerability, less bug, upgradability is also better, and I think this is an interesting framework.
I think I wanted to steer away a bit the conversation on from regulatory standpoints more into the scalability point you mentioned, which was the second one. I think an important change that we've seen very fast in the industry is modularity. And what I mean by that is, for example, it's not enough for now your wallet to just do transaction signing and sending. And specifically, DeFi protocols right now, they are becoming more compatible with different wallets, but the wallets themselves are not just wallets anymore. Now they have a swap protocol integrated within. They also are adding for token management, token issuance tools into the wallets. And I think, for example, Cosmos is doing this in its own way. I think the Cosmos kit is very modular in a way that you can easily integrate applications within applications. And I think this is really interesting in general because we don't want to have a kind of like, we want to have an horizontally scalable industry where everyone has a purpose-built DeFi protocol, but they can still interoperate, and we don't need a wallet for a specific chain. And I still think that we are not there yet, but we're seeing this as a trend. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you're right. And speaking of scalability, so Bruno, I'll take the same analogy, same structure as you. So if you divide it in three pieces, you have like the application layer, the blockchain layer, and the user, the end user, whether it's an institution or like a retailer. I think that scalability is gonna come. I'm gonna talk about what I know, like the second one. So the blockchain, we also need like to make sure that the blockchain, the tool that we're gonna use, is scalable. And as you said, Fabio, that passed by being a chain that is interoperable, that is fast, that is secure, and that have the right tools to enable like this scalability.
Mounir, do you want to add something to that? No?
I cannot disagree. So I already
All right.
disagreed. So yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So guys, because one part of the question was about regulatory topic, and we moved out of it a little bit, but I think it's very important to talk about it. So let me ask, how do you envision the regulatory landscape evolving for DeFi? And what steps can the industry take to proactively engage the regulators while persevering the decentralized nature of DeFi? Mounir, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm in for a separation between apps that are end user facing or it can be even institutional facing from the layers that are native to protocols like code that is open source that's running on the blockchain has to be completely neutral regardless of the jurisdiction or the regulator because simply it's something global, it's something that's supposed to serve a public purpose. The analogy is email, HTTP, and so on. But I believe that it's very hard to imagine a world maybe in the future where it's gonna look like today, where everything is not regulated and the thing is that this is not custodial, removes the responsibility from anyone. But we are also in for a smart regulation that gonna take the nuances of this field that is very, very different from traditional finance and fintech. And we've seen more and more regulators, especially in Europe, obviously, and also in Asia, in Southeast Asia, getting this nuance and understanding this nuance and trying to do baby steps and iterate in order to end up finding the best possible regulation that's still flexible and allows innovation in the space.
Thank you. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I think on the front of regulation, I think everyone in this panel works on the technology side of things. So my approach is always to encourage a hybrid model or just having the option for enterprises or institutions that want to use this DeFi technology to be able to KYC their users. So for example, on Sologenic that is built on the XRPL, and XRP recently has a successful win and the SEC. That's really positive for the whole industry and it just gives more accessibility to that asset. But to my point, to, for example, trade stocks, you definitely need to KYC. And the perks that tokenization brings there is, for example, having your cryptocurrencies and your tokenized stocks under the same custody, under the same platform. But for that, you need to be KYC. You need to be compliant. And there's perks to that. And I think that needs to be not enforced, but like I said, as an option. And then the decentralized part, like the DEX, it's still completely decentralized. There's no obligation for you to just interact with that other branch. So I think it has to be like that as an option.
Yeah, and for example, on XDC, we have a private network where we work with institutions and enterprises that want to move to Web3. We're also ISO compliant. And I think, and I truly believe that if we want to have adoption, we are going to have to sacrifice a little bit of decentralization to really get those users into our networks and our ecosystem.
If I may, I don't really think so. Like, you don't need to lose some decentralization if you have the right tool, if you have the right blockchain, if you have the right, the right tools on that platform to make sure that, because like as you said, like KYC, but this is done off chain, right? It's done by some third party. But then after that, the question is, how do you enforce this KYC on chain? And for example, I'm talking about Corium because this is what I know, but like if you look at smart tokens, into smart tokens, we have like what we call this whitelist feature. And this whitelist feature allow to transact on a particular asset on the smart token only for a certain address. And yeah,
I totally agree with you, but sometimes enterprises, they require you to, for example, pass KYC or to be regulated somehow. So that's what I really meant. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
All right, guys, now let's talk about another trend, and this is the environment, right? This is super important. It's in all of the media. So in light of the environmental concerns and energy consumption, what do you think the future of sustainable DeFi looks like? Mounir, do you want to start?
What do you mean by sustainable, just to understand the question?
Well, sustainable, it means something that, of course, is cautious about the energy consumption, the environment, setting up servers to work with.
Yeah, well, I think you can see that as like Bitcoin in anything else. And for Bitcoin, where we can have this conversation, but I think vast majority of other chains are moved to proof of stake, dedicated proof of stake, which I think is energy efficient. Still need to convince the Bitcoiners or like had this debate with Bitcoiners whether is it really energy inefficient or not. they have some good argument actually, but yeah, I'm not like have the skills or the right knowledge to know. Maybe you guys have a better idea on that.
Yeah, I think that. So that sustainability is it's always like a really good question. Like as you said, like from with Bitcoin proof of work right now, like Ethereum, all of the Cosmos chain, there it's proof of stake, so it's way less energy. But you can think also about it in a different way. For example, let's say you buy a car. If you switch car every year, even if it's like the best car, it's zero emission, it's not really sustainable. So if you talk about sustainability of a product, I think that's come like it's really where like interoperability and upgradability come from. Like if your product is able like to evolve during the year, you're not gonna need like a new product. And as I said, a new product is like a lot of energy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big guy into sustainability, but I don't think that's a main problem in DeFi since it's proof of stake. So the energy cost is near zero. But I think now I've seen new narratives building in Bitcoin. I've seen NFTs in Bitcoin. So I think we should educate more people. We all love Bitcoin. It's just, as you said, we need to separate Bitcoin and the rest because proof of work and proof of stake is quite different. So I think we just need to educate people. So instead of building on Bitcoin and making things not sustainable, since proof of work takes a lot of energy, we can move them into in the DeFi ecosystem, and it's going to be way more sustainable.
I think just to close up that whole argument on sustainability, I would like to mention, for example, projects that measure water consumption or energy consumption that are not Web3 native. We're seeing them incorporate blockchain to keep track of their carbon offset reductions or just to keep better track of how they're optimizing their pipeline to actually save more energy, save more natural resources. So I do see blockchain playing a positive role in that realm. And I saw some hackathon actually participants building these systems where you could install a device on a water. I think it's a plant where you clean water, and just measure how much you're doing it on the blockchain, and then compare it to kind of like the goal. There's an agenda, a regulatory agenda of how much we should aim to reduce by 2025, and by that difference, they can get funding from the government and continue to do these initiatives that are ultimately good for the planet. So I do think blockchain has a positive impact on that front as well.
I have a question for you, Mounir. So at Paraswap, for example, how do you abort sustainability?
In that sense, like the energy level or what kind of?
Both of them.
Well, you can maybe like in our side, we look at the economical side. For instance, as an aggregator, we run a big infrastructure, like hundreds of servers that are running in real time, and a lot of ways you can address to optimize. For instance, we spent like 2 weeks filtering out spams, and we kind of divided the number of resources by 2 that are being used, just because spams. And those spams, they're not like hackers. They just like try to get some insight and some data, but they're like overusing resources of ours and other aggregators. But that's like we're talking about going from, I don't know, 50K a month for in AWS build to 25K, which translates into less infrastructure being used, which translates into less electricity and so on. So that's the only thing I can think about in our particular case.
Nice, thank you.
Guys, so now that we're talking about the environment, we also have to consider other things that belong to sustainability, such as financial inclusion, right? This is also part of the global sustainability goals. So DeFi often targets financial inclusion. How can the DeFi ecosystem ensure accessibility and affordability for underserved communities, especially in developing countries?
Okay, so I can respond this one. I really like this question. So I think DeFi is the key for financial inclusion. So we are all very lucky to be here today. We are in Europe, and I'm sure that all of you guys have bank accounts. But if I bet most of you didn't know that 6% of the whole population is unbanked. Like they don't even have a bank account, they don't even have a KYC. So if we look at the emerging markets like Africa, like more than 30% of the population in many countries there, they have bank accounts thanks to DeFi because they just have a wallet and they get paid in crypto. They are not KYC and they can use these wallets, decentralized wallets, without a KYC, they don't have banks there. So they use decentralized applications, they use wallets that are decentralized to become and to be banked. So I think that's huge. And thanks to the centralized protocols, they can get paid in crypto. They use crypto there all the time. And also they can use DeFi applications to earn more money and to use those applications to lend, to borrow, to swap. So it's like an under economy that they have in these emerging markets that is really helping them. So I think this is financial inclusion and DeFi is really helping in those countries that need it the most.
Just to add on to that, I think I'm going to go a bit more abstract. I think the first and foremost problem that DeFi solves is money. If you take a look at, for example, I don't know what is the name of in Spain, but the Federal Reserve Bank and how they, in the United States, and how they print money. If I ask you what parameters do they use to print money, and they just post the report, we don't know. You know, they can do it deliberately. On a blockchain protocol, you can see how many tokens are issued, and it's very transparent. There's governance involved. So I think money is the first thing that blockchain serves. And the way this affects developing countries is that they have a new way to transact value, not necessarily online. I've seen even a proof of concept device doing it on the phone. And it unlocks a whole new economy for them. So I definitely think encouraging DeFi adoption through education in these countries, for example, in Latin America or Africa, like you mentioned, is something that we're all for it. And it's a challenge because it's hard to access these regions, I would say, from a technological standpoint. But I think they are the ones that are going to signal real mass adoption when it comes.
Sorry, I would like to add something. And it's like also, thanks to DeFi, we are giving power to the money that we have because we own that money. But if you have the money in the bank, you depend on the bank. You have your money in your ledger, for example, or in your Trezor wallet. Thanks to DeFi applications and DeFi infrastructure, your money, you are the one that owns that money. No one can take it away from you. So that's something that really helps in the ecosystem.
So I want to point out something that Fabio said. The majority of my team is located in Nigeria. I have about 10 people in Nigeria that are paid in stable coins, and they prefer to be paid in stable coins and keep their money in stable coins. But something very important is the technology part. So the people that work for me, they have the money to buy a good phone, they have the money to buy a laptop, but there is a huge part of the population that does not have that. They're brilliant developers, but if their laptop is broken, they don't really have the funds to buy a new one, right? So this dilemma is a big one, right? Like, how do they then get the funds to buy the appropriate technology to actually continue building, to continue exploring DeFi and adopting DeFi, because they're actually really profiting out of DeFi, because this gives them a new access to the world. And I think this is a challenge that it would be great if someone can solve it.
We can solve it at Corium. No, but when you look at it, is that, as you say, like, they really trust in the technology. This is why, like, they put their asset on chain. But at the end of the day, like, those coin on chain, they need to be usable, like, for goods, for a laptop, for food. So the next step, I think, is like, how do we make sure that those retailers, at the end of the day, they accept tokens?
Exactly, because the banking transaction fees are so high with centralized exchanges there, exchanging cryptocurrencies to native currencies is very high. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, once again, like, the blockchain, so they trust in the blockchain, we trust in the blockchain, we trust DeFi. And right now, the next step is more tokenization and more adoption. And at the end of the day, we're going to be able, like, to bridge the gap that you just mentioned, Mario.
Perfect. So as DeFi matures, what role do you see traditional financial institutions playing in this ecosystem, and how can they adapt or collaborate with DeFi projects? Yeah, Helvan?
Can you repeat, please?
Yes. So as DeFi matures, what role do you see traditional financial services institutions play in the space, and how can they collaborate with DeFi protocols, with DeFi companies?
Yeah, I think they started already. Like we see more and more like institutions, whether they are banks, central banks, experimenting with the blockchain, and I think that it's they start to play their part, but it's also our goals as the blockchain at the layer one to inspire them, give them confidence into the technology. And so sorry to repeat it, but that's come from security. It have to be secure, fast, interoperable, and but I think it's we're getting there.
I think it also has to do with the messaging that we have to all give as the Web3 in general has to be solution driven. So what I mean by that is, for example, there was a JP Morgan transaction that happened recently where they used crypto as collateral to do like a cross-border transaction. So a lot of people are talking about that. But sometimes when we talk about blockchain, we talk about the technology specs, right? Like how fast it is, and we talk about the SDKs we have, and like it serves a purpose for the developer adoption part. But I think we need more blockchain protocols that are shifting their messaging to be more solution driven for institutions to see, oh, okay, you're solving double taxation problems, for example, by having all digital assets on one platform. Or you have, tokenization unlocks 24/7 trading that unlocks more liquid markets or more liquidity management tools. So I think that's a very important role, and that's something that we do have a bit of control in. So that's why I just wanted to add on to it.
What about ISO, Fabio? You think that can solve the? What do you think?
ISO is it's all about communication, right? So they need to trust the information, the data that is going through this blockchain channel. So ISO is just the standard that will help being more compatible to what they are already used to use, and it's definitely important.
Okay, guys, so I just want to ask each of one of you in 20 seconds, how do you think we can drive more adoption into Web3 from Web2 users? Everyone, 20 seconds.
I'll be the first. I'm going to be very quick. I think it's all about education. I think if we educate people about the benefits of DeFi and blockchain, they are really going to get interested, because when I first started learning about Web3 and Bitcoin, I was like, what the heck is this? Why didn't know about this before? So I think the key is about education in schools, in social media, and once little by little we educate people, we are going to get more users. I think that's the only solution.
Just to complement on that, I don't think it's just education. I honestly think the Web3 aspect of the blockchain aspect should be transparent. Like, they don't need to know they're interacting with a blockchain. They need to feel as if they're just logging into their Gmail account. And what I mean by that is just trying to, it's not a UX, UI problem, but it's a problem that involves just thinking more about the user and how they actually, convenience. It's literally all about convenience. So I think education plus UX, UI, and then solution-driven messaging, like I mentioned, is a good combo for adoption.
Thanks. Helvan, quickly, 15 seconds.
Yeah, so I agree with both of you. So I think it's the users, the technology. Like, it's been a pleasure to be here. Like at the hackathon, for example, like we've seen like some amazing project that just bridge that gap. Like how like a normal user that don't really know about blockchain can leverage blockchain capacity.
Amazing.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
users.
Mounir?
I would say I agree. And yes, abstraction of the complexity of the blockchain may be the key of the mass adoption, I hope.
Thank you, everyone, for participating
Thank
in
you.
this panel
Thank
and
you.
for
Thank you, guys.
listening
Thank you,
to
everyone.
us.